Hello everyone and welcome to another video on our channel. It's Mir here as you can see, and today I want to try something a little bit different, and it's not that the webcam is in a different spot. I guess you could call this more like an opinionated video, and as you might have guessed by the title or the thumbnail, this is about Cody. Now Cody got a lot of attention recently. As you may know, John Takeuchi did extremely well with Cody in Topanga League. Momochi is playing Cody. You might have heard Daigo talk about it, or you might have seen Vesper's video on Daigo versus Momochi and that set that they had where Daigo got absolutely blasted, and some people even got so far to say that he might be a better character than Luke, which I don't know, seems a little bit suspicious to me. So we'll dive right in and see what this is all about, because my opinion, and this is my opinion, is that Cody is not as big of a threat as people make him out to be. Now, I'm not saying that he's bad, because I actually don't think he is. I think he's pretty good. But I believe that a lot of people are kind of like over-exaggerating his strengths. I'll explain why over the course of the video. So let's go over why people think that Cody is a good character. Let's see what tools stand out, what he's good at, and probably also what he's weak at. So let's get into it. I'm sure you heard before that Cody has some strong V-triggers. Many believe that V-trigger 2 is one of the strongest V-triggers in the game. Now, I don't know if I'd go that far to say that it is that strong, but it is absolutely a very good V-trigger. In case you don't know, it gives Cody access to pipe normals, where he can hit you from further away with higher damage. He also has a pipe attack, it looks like a baseball swing, where he can reflect projectiles towards you, especially multi-hitting projectiles, on top of using it in combos to do damage. He also has a rock that he can throw for set play, and then it falls on your head. And he has a command grab as well, with a just frame for extra damage. It's a very good all-in-one package, and this is only for 2 bars. He cannot use his firebolt, the tornado that he normally throws. He has to use a combination of the rock and the pipe, or use the pipe to reflect enemy projectiles. So that's, I guess, a weakness of this V-trigger if you want to really find one. However, I'd like to say that even though V-trigger 2 seems so good on paper, both John Takeuchi and Momochi use V-trigger 1 a lot, especially Momochi. I believe that this is because of the latest buffs, especially to Crushing Heavy Punch, which is now a much more effective anti-air and can be used in combos because it knocks down as opposed to air resetting. This gives V-trigger 1 much more damaging combos and in general more utility in neutral as well. And V-trigger 1 is pretty important for Cody because it gives him the ability to stop the opponent from pressing buttons in neutral very effectively, as his normals are quite fast for the range that they have, and most of them are cancelable as well, so you can use that to your advantage to then cancel, for example, in the knife toss, which is a special move that he has access to during this V-trigger that kind of like replaces his fireball. He also can use a forward advancing move, the knife slashes. If that is blocked, it's plus on block. You can also use the knife toss that I just mentioned as an anti-air, like for pretty good damage too. So then again, this is another very versatile and effective 2-bar V-trigger. And this is a commonality of both Cody's V-triggers. For only 2 bars, they offer, honestly, a lot of utility. Now, to continue talking a little bit about the V-system, his V-skill 2 that Cody got when everyone got a V-skill 2, Crime's Way, helped him quite a bit because, as you might have heard, Cody is kind of weak to zoning, and he still is, but V-skill 2 can help him quite a bit to deal with fireballs, as he can basically do this dodge, followed up on an attack that you can use to go through fireballs, for example, and go through attacks on the ground in general. The V-skill 2 kick is actually kind of difficult to punish because it is only -6 and it can be spaced. It has some pushback, so some characters can find it difficult to punch, like for example Guile. The V-skill 2 punch is -7, so it's a little bit more unsafe, also he moves into you. But that one has a lot of utility for combos, as you can cancel out of it, and in general has good juggle potential, so it's a good way of building V-gauge effectively during a combo. And this is one of the keys of Cody's high damage. On top of all of this, Cody can just do the dodge and then do no follow-up. And because of this, some people found it difficult to whiff punish, maybe because they're not used to it. You can see in the Topanga footage that sometimes they just kind of like let it happen. So that's another strength of this V-skill. Now, talking about Cody's good tools, you might have heard it from Daigo himself, but he thinks, or seems to think, the standing medium kick is the best normal in the game. Now, I feel like that's a little bit extreme, and Daigo, you know, has been known for some of his takes, but I'm not one to say that this is not a good tool, because it is. We can go through it. In fact, it is plus on block, it has long reach, it's relatively fast as it is only 7 frames, it's plus on hit so that you can combo after, especially on counter hit, and overall it's a very spammable normal. It's difficult to whiff punish as well because it's relatively fast. So, you know, a lot of people you can see even, again, in the Topanga League matches, that they kind of like just let it happen a lot. If the opponent has bad defense because maybe they only have a 4-frame jab or they don't have an easy way out of pressure, like for example any X reversal to kind of like make Cody stop pressing this button, it can be very deadly. The only thing that is missing is that it could have been a cancelable normal, which I hope, you know, Capcom doesn't go back and do, because that'd be pretty crazy. Now, I've been dancing around it, but one of Cody's defining special moves is the Zonk Knuckle. Instead of being an evasive move like it was in past games, Zonk is a safe advancing move. The EX version is plus on block instead. In a previous patch it got buffed so that if you hold the buttons for 300 frames, you get a better version that you can combo out of. The normal version gives you a combo on the ground, usually you can link lights, and on counter hit you can get some more. And the EX version wall bounces the opponent so you can get a follow-up, which is especially good if you have V-Skill 2. Now, if you look at this move on paper, it looks overpowered. It does good damage, it's relatively fast, it's for an advancing, can even be plus on block, you know, it gives you a combo, might as well make coffee at this point. So how can it be this good? Well, the problem with it is that, kind of like Balrog's turnaround punch, you have to hold down a button to execute it. And you have to hold down 2 if you want the EX. And that's the crux of the problem. That really prevents you from really using a lot of your good normals in neutral, which is why standing medium kick is so important for Cody's game plan, as it's kind of like this all-in-one button that lets you play neutral, poke, be able to do pressure because it is plus on block. It's just very useful for him. And on top of that, as I mentioned before, the V-Trigger 1 is really good for this as well, because you kind of have a lot of overlapping use for your normals where you can use their strong reach and speed to stop your opponents from pressing buttons in neutral. For example, with your lights while you're charging Zonk. And then when the opportunity arises, you get a cancel into huge damage. So that's another really good thing for V-Trigger 1 in particular. This still doesn't give us the full picture, however. These tools, yes, they're good, but Cody is still quite linear, so why is he so effective? Well, the reason is that his damage is just absolutely mind-boggling. His damage is insane. And the reason why that is because you have a combination of Empowered Zonk, V-Skill 2, the V-Trigger 1 buffs. They just lead to some devastating combos, and it's not uncommon to die in 2 interactions from Cody, especially if he has full meter and he can then kill you with the stun combo that he does after he inevitably will stun you. So this allows Cody to get comebacks pretty easily, especially in combination with his good V-triggers, especially in matchups where he can struggle to land hits, like for example most zoners, as we discussed before. He kind of struggles with them. But just because of the explosiveness of his combos, he's just able to get 2 right guesses and destroy his opponent. And this leads me straight to my point. Although Cody is not a new character, people didn't really take him all that seriously until now. I know that John Takeuchi has been playing Cody even last season quite a bit, and Momochi picked him up multiple times over the course of the season, basically every time he got patched to see if it was a character for him. As you might know, Momochi had played Cody in the past, so it's not like both of these players just picked him up all of a sudden, but you can see now that these players are very proficient with the character as they've been playing him over the course of the seasons, while the opposition, if you will, is not quite proficient with dealing with the strong suits of the character. You can see it a lot in the Topanga matches, for example. There's a lot of stuff that goes unpunished or is not with punished correctly. You know, you can kind of see even the wrong options being chosen on defense when blocking certain attacks, as a lot of players don't really know the kind of like the frame data and situation they're in, the correct ranges. Even on Oki, you see that there's some problems. So you can definitely feel that unfamiliarity that I was mentioning just a second ago. Thanks to FGC Translated on YouTube, we know what Daigo talks about on the stream, or at least I know because I don't know Japanese. So thanks to him for his translations. But recently there have been quite a few videos that have been released on Cody, and mostly about Daigo practicing to deal with John Takeuchi in Topanga League, as he knows that, you know, the matches are coming up. And he's finding the matchup difficult even against other Codys. And obviously you guys have all seen the video where Momochi's played against Daigo and completely washed him. So you guys know that Daigo is struggling with the matchup. But even in his case, we can see improvement over time. Like, for example, there's a video where we see kind of like Daigo's thought process as he figures out that neutral jumping on Cody seems to be a good option as Guile, as Cody doesn't have very good answers to neutral jumps. The only thing that he really can do is heavy ruffian kick, but if he's busy trying to scout for a neutral jump to do heavy ruffian kick, then he's not prepared for all kinds of other jumps, for example, and Daigo could use that to his advantage and basically, you know, optimize the matchup, be better at it. Even though this is quite a rudimentary solution, it's still a great example of how even a player the caliber of Daigo still hasn't quite unlocked everything in this matchup. On top of all this, I'd like to mention that Cody seems to be a really good pick in the current meta, especially because many players believe that he has a winning matchup against Luke, and as you guys may know, Luke is everywhere. Luke is public enemy number 1. So that's already a very, very good thing for him. Another thing that is worth mentioning is that his bad matchups, like I was mentioning, zoners, especially the limb zoners like Dhalsim and Menat, are relatively uncommon. Both John Takeuchi and Momochi probably know that players that play these characters are not going to show up all that often, so they feel justified on playing this character. I don't know if I buy the fact that he beats Guile, as basically until yesterday everyone was complaining how, you know, Cody dies to zoning, and yeah, V-Skill 2 helps, but it doesn't solve the matchup. You know, like, it's just not a solution for Guile completely, and now all of a sudden he's supposed to beat him. I don't know, that sounds a little bit suspicious to me, but I mean, I'm willing to believe it once I see it consistently. And apparently it seems that Iguchi, which is another Japanese player who also plays Guile, is much more proficient at this matchup than Daigo. So it could very well be that it was just an individual player bias and different strategies that they developed. So we'll see in the future if, you know, this prediction holds true. I guess that you could say that basically my theory is that Cody is not going to be a threat for very long. I don't think he's bad, and in fact I think he will see play because of what we mentioned before, how the meta kind of like favors him right now. But I feel like people are perceiving him as overpowered right now because they still haven't figured out how to correctly deal with him, and because he is so explosive, if you make just 1 or 2 mistakes against him, you're basically gonna die. I mean, he just does that much damage, he's crazy. As I mentioned, his damage is good, his V-triggers are good. That just makes a great pick for tournaments, because you kind of have this robbery factor, especially with V-trigger 2, you know, if you like having the command throw as well, where in a 2 out of 3, just that will be effective enough to continue playing Cody. But he might still struggle in some matchups, especially when, like I said, players are able to finally unlock all the nuances of the situation and be more able to punish what Cody is doing in neutral. And this is my opinion anyway. I mean, I think I make some fair points, but you know, you might disagree with me, and I want you to tell me in the comments, as there might be something that I'm not seeing. I know that a lot of people absolutely believe that Cody is broken. You know, I just want to know why. As always, make sure to subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, like the video, you know, all that good stuff if you enjoy our content. We're always working on something new to release, so make sure to stay tuned as well if you want to see more videos like these. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.